Have you ever gotten frustrated that something you really wanted had not shown up in your physical reality yet? This video is for you, and I promise you, if you watch it and spend these next few moments with me, you will feel the faith rising on the inside of you. Welcome in to the Stephen Lovegrove Show. All things are possible for the one who believes, and you are the one. That is the core message that I'm going to come back to again and again and again. I have a bunch of brand new teachings on faith that I am so excited to begin releasing to you today. If you would, take a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for notifications. That is a simple but very effective way to tell the algorithm I want more of this message and this content in my life. And like I said, I have a lot that I have been receiving and working on and preparing for you around this topic of faith. I actually originally was going to do one big teaching on faith, and it was going to be 5 ways to increase your faith. But I realized that particular teaching would have just been so long that I decided it would be better and it would be more digestible for you and more integrated for you if we took our time and went through these one video at a time. And let me just say, by the way, my heart and my intention for all the trainings that I do is always that they would work in the context of your life. So whether that is you listening to 10 or 15 minutes at a time, here and there, on the go, and getting a little nugget every single time you do, whether that is you making yourself some coffee or tea and sitting down with a journal and lighting a candle and giving this your full attention and deciding to have a transformative day for yourself, that is, of course, welcome and encouraged. Or whether it is you having these on in the background and playing them on repeat in your life. In the car, in the kitchen, in the headphones or AirPods, whatever it is. Just having it on repeat, so that it can get into your subconscious mind and it can be integrated a little bit deeper every single time. However you choose to engage, this is here for you. And I can promise you, it will build your faith and shift your life and accelerate your results every single time that you put an empowering message like this into your consciousness. So, I'm going to begin by reminding you that the definition of faith is the evidence of that which is unseen. The evidence of that which is unseen. I love that definition because it's a contradiction, right? How can I have evidence of something if it is completely unseen? But that is the mystery of faith. That is the whole point. That is the concept of faith. It's that I have inner evidence and inner conviction and inner belief in something that is currently unseen. And we're going to dive into, over the next, not 5 points, but over the next 5 videos, 5 powerful ways to increase your faith, starting from right now. But I just want to invite us to do something, and I felt led that we needed to begin here before we dived into any of these 5. If you would just close your eyes with me, if you're able to do that, if it's safe and comfortable where you are, just close your eyes for a moment. And first and foremost, as we move into a conversation of faith, I want to invite each and every one of you to temporarily disconnect from the realm of the seen, the realm of your external world, the realm of your circumstances and what is going on in your life that might be calling for your distracted attention right now, and all the things that you could be thinking about and distracted by and worried about, and let it all go in this moment. Just step away for a moment. Give yourself temporary permission to step away from the realm of the seen. And I just felt led, before we get into anything specific, before we ask for something, before we set intentions, I just want us to move deliberately and consciously into the realm of the eternal. The infinitely loving, infinitely powerful, infinitely wise, infinitely intelligent, infinitely good presence of God. You know, sometimes I think it's hard for us to access faith because we're disconnected and we're isolated and we've unplugged from our source. And so I want us to begin today plugging back into our source, making that connection, becoming one again with all that there is. So feel this grounding truth. In God I live and move and have my being. Feel your way into the presence of God right now, and just feel that it is a place of wholeness. Everything that exists is contained here. Everything you need is here. Everything you want is here. And we just release any illusion that would say anything else. And we let ourselves rest in this wholeness. Letting it fill up our tank. Letting it restore and renew and refresh us. Letting it rejuvenate us. We just rest in this unconditionally loving presence. It is so good to be in this space. And now, from this consciousness of wholeness and perfection and completion, I want to invite you to ask yourself, what is one thing that I would like to increase my faith around this month? What is one thing that I would like to increase my faith around in this month? And I want to invite you to just release that, putting that into the hands of infinite loving intelligence, knowing it is in the best possible hands. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and rejoin me here. We are certain that your highest and best is coming forward during this time. And we are certain that even as you watch or listen to this video, your faith is being built. So, as we go through these 5 ways to increase your faith over the next few videos, every single one of them is going to have a timeless spiritual principle with it. And then every single one of them is going to have a way to put it into practice. And so the principle for today, if you want to jot this down, write this down, take notes, the principle for today is faith is the bridge between the invisible and the visible realm. Faith is the bridge between the invisible and the visible realm. Now, there's a foundational idea of metaphysics. And if you've studied it, if you've watched my stuff before, if you've been in the world of spirituality for any length of time, this probably isn't news to you. You've probably heard an idea that was worded something along the lines of, everything exists as a possibility in the quantum field. Everything exists as a possibility in the quantum field. You know, that's not really a religious idea or even a spiritual idea. That is a scientific idea. And wait until the next video that I share with you, where we are going to talk about a series of experiments that changed the way we understood science in the last 50 years. It certainly changed my life when I found out about it. And there is a takeaway that I bet you've never thought about before when it comes to faith. I'm going to share that with you in the next video, but trust me when I say, the idea that everything exists as a possibility in the quantum field is not really a religious idea or a spiritual idea. That is a scientific truth. It's all there. But where people get tripped up is, okay, Stefan, so if it's all there, why isn't it here? Maybe another way that we could ask the honest question I know a lot of people feel is, Stefan, what good does it do for me if I know that it's all there, but if I don't have it in my life here? What's the point? What's the use? What good does that do me? And I would say the answer is, it was never meant to stay in the invisible realm. That's just where it starts. But that was meant to be a beginning point, not an ending. Not where it stayed, not where the story concluded, right? It was meant to begin in the invisible realm. But that's not where it's supposed to stay. What you want is designed to go from the invisible realm of possibility into the visible manifestation of your life. Let me say that again. What you want is designed to move from the invisible realm of possibility into the visible manifestation of your life. Now, we should mention here, everything exists there in the invisible. So you don't actually want all of it, right? And I'm not being facetious here. I think this is worth mentioning. I think this is an important point. We've talked about before the Choose Your Own Adventure book, right? And I told you I only had one of them, and I thought it was such a precious treasure of mine that I did, right? In my Choose Your Own Adventure book, not all of the options were things that I perceived to be good endings. Certainly, when I would go through it, not all of the options were fun. Not all of the options were what I wanted. And so I want you to recognize everything exists as a possibility in the quantum field. But that doesn't mean that you want it all to show up in your life. There are energies that you would probably say today, I don't want in my life. There are experiences that you would probably say today, Stefan, in all honesty, I'm all right skipping out on that one. There are many things in the invisible realm that are available simply as a choice, simply as an outcome, simply as a possibility that exists within the quantum field. But it's not what you want. and you don't have to experience it. This is, by the way, why I recommend being careful about taking on other people's beliefs and taking on other people's assumptions and taking on other people's paradigms without really thinking about, do I want this to be true for me? Is this what I want to experience? Because there's a lot of frequencies out there. There's a lot of experiences out there. There's a lot of paradigms out there. And somebody else might be living there. But that doesn't mean you want to. And that doesn't mean you have to. And so we want to be aware. We want to be conscious. We want to be selective on what paradigms we take into our life. Right? Because all options are available in the invisible realm, but I get to choose what I experience. If we use the classic metaphor of ordering from a menu, think about a food item or two as an example that you would just never, ever, ever choose to order. Okay? I'll give you some examples. Blue cheese items that have a prominent use or taste of blue cheese. I personally would never willingly order. You can let me know how you feel about that in the comments. We might see completely opposite opinions about that, and that's okay. But blue cheese is something I wouldn't really order. Escargot is something that you will never see me ordering, okay? This is gonna be a controversial one, but calamari is something. I know lots of people love it, but not for me. It is something you will never see me ordering. I want you to think about how there are certainly items that you could see on a menu and you could know that it was an option. You could know that it was available, and somebody else might choose it, and somebody else might have it on their plate right now, but it's not what you want to experience, and that is your choice. And I will always take a stand for your power of choice, your power of creation, your power of free will. You get to choose. You get to decide for yourself. And it's important that you make sure you are really making that decision for yourself. Not a decision coming from past wounds and hurt and trauma. Not a decision that comes from ego with something to prove. Not a decision that comes from what your family wants. Not a decision that comes from paradigms of the past that are not true for you anymore. Not a decision that comes from fear of missing out or loss or disappointing others, but that you're really choosing for yourself from your heart, from your soul, from the flow that has your name on it, as Oprah would say. It's all available. That doesn't mean you want it all, but it's all there, it's all real, it's all available, and you get to choose. And the important principle here, the key idea for today, is that faith is the bridge that moves something from that invisible realm where it all exists as a possibility. Faith is what moves something from the invisible into the realm of the visible. Only our belief can do that. Only our belief can bridge the gap. Only our belief can successfully complete that transfer. And you all know I love hashtag metaphysics through metaphor, and there is an example that I wanted to share with you today in this video. And it is the example of accessing radio frequencies. accessing radio frequencies. And I am excited, by the way, about this video and this series of videos on this topic. And let me know in the comments if it is illuminating for you and helpful for you. But I really felt as I was preparing here, there's a lot of people out there who have heard a lot of teaching and coaching and training in the past around ideas of faith and belief and frequency and all of these things. It's not like these are brand new concepts to you, but you're gonna hear it in a new way in this series. You're gonna receive it in a new way in this series. You're gonna be able to work with it in a new way in this series, right? So I want to use this analogy. Right now, in this very room, there are countless frequencies of all kinds, by the way, not just radio. Bluetooth frequencies and Wi-Fi frequencies and television frequencies, etc. There are all kinds of frequencies passing through this airspace right now. They're just invisible. But they're there, right? I wouldn't be able to be connected to this device recording for you right now if these frequencies were not real and active and successfully passing through the room, right? Now, one category of those frequencies is radio frequencies. I'm talking old school AM, FM radio frequencies. Now, as it stands right now, I don't have a way to connect to those frequencies in this room. My MacBook cannot connect, my Echo cannot connect, my lighting rig cannot connect. As of right now, I don't have any way to connect here in this room. So follow me here, and I know I'm really belaboring it here with this analogy, but it's so helpful, I think. That is where a disconnect occurs. Because the thing is available, the frequency is available, the experience is available in the invisible realm, but I don't see it, and I don't hear it, and I don't feel it in this room. I can't access it in this room. I'm not experiencing it in this room. So it doesn't even feel real to me, and it doesn't feel relevant to me, and it doesn't feel available to me, and it doesn't feel helpful to me, and it doesn't feel like it's flowing to me. It just feels like I'm not experiencing it because there's a disconnect. And the disconnect is, it is there in the invisible realm, even right now. But I can't connect to it, so I'm not experiencing it in this room. Now, what happens if I buy a clock radio that can tune in to those vintage AM, FM frequencies? What happens if I buy a clock radio and I bring that into this room? Suddenly, I have a tool to use. Suddenly, I have access. Suddenly, I have a point of connection. And if I have that radio, and I use it, and I turn it on, and I tune in to a specific frequency, and I turn up the volume, I can use that tool. And suddenly, it moved from a frequency that was available somehow, somewhere in the invisible realm. It moves from that to something I am hearing and experiencing and enjoying in this room. That radio, though, is a required tool to move something from the invisible realm into the realm of my experience. Does that make sense? If we use this metaphor, I wrote it down this way for you. Faith moves it from just on the radio to being in the room with you. Faith moves it from being out there somewhere on the radio to being in the room with you. And I was thinking about this because I believe there are so many people out there, and certainly people watching this and listening to this. And there is at least one area in your life where you are frustrated because there's a disconnect. And maybe you know some truths. Maybe you have some principles stored away in your consciousness. Maybe you've tried some things. Maybe you've gone to some coaches, some mentors, some experts. Maybe you've heard some teaching before. But there's at least one area in your life where there is a disconnect. And the thing you want still feels stuck in the invisible realm. And we're going to dive into a lot more practically, energetically, and spiritually here over the next 4 videos. But where I wanted to begin today is just saying, don't give up on it, because it's still in the realm of the invisible. Don't give up on it, because it's still in the realm of the invisible. The fact that you haven't seen it yet doesn't mean it's not on the way. The fact that you don't have evidence yet doesn't mean it's not working. The fact that you're not holding it yet, that you can't touch it yet, that you haven't received it yet, doesn't mean it's not available to you. Everything begins in the invisible realm. And faith is a tool we use. Faith is a point of contact and connection. Faith is a method of access that allows us to move something from the invisible to the visible realm. And I want to just say here, this really is part of the definition of faith, is recognizing it always begins on the level of what we can't see. As I was preparing this training, I was guided to a story around Jesus' most famous teaching on faith. And there's teaching, there's principles, there's quotes that are so juicy, and billions of people all around the world have heard them, but there's a story around one of Jesus's most famous, iconic teachings on faith. And I think this story illustrates a principle that is so important. By the way, you'll notice in story after story after story, Jesus did not seem to think that only he had access to this faith and everybody else should just be watching him do it all. That is not what Jesus believes, and that is not what Jesus taught. Jesus said all things are possible for anyone who believes, for whoever believes, for the one who believes. That's my core message, because that applies to you. You can be the one because you have faith inside of you. And so Jesus is always talking about faith, and he wants all of his community to understand this faith is not just in one person. It doesn't just live within him. They have the faith. And he understood and he taught that the faith only works if you work it. He wanted them to work the faith muscle inside of them. And so he's doing a teaching trying to explain that faith is an invisible force, but it moves external things. It's an invisible force, but it changes the visible world. It's an invisible force, but make no mistake, it creates shifts and effects and miracles that in some cases the whole world can see. And he's trying to teach this principle. And he walks by a tree. And out of a demonstration of this principle, he says, I'm going to use my faith. This tree will now bear no more fruits. Now imagine, you've got a crowd of people there, and they are gripped and compelled and drawn into this teaching, and they're all listening and waiting and watching with anticipation, wondering, what is this crazy guy that does all these miracles? What is he going to do next, right? And in a demonstration of faith, he speaks this word to this tree. And do you know what happened next? Absolutely nothing. And I worded it that way intentionally because I feel like if I was there, I would have been disappointed. I would have been expecting something more dramatic, something more grandiose, something I could see, something undeniable, something clear, right? Like, if you're trying to demonstrate a principle, can you do it in a way that everybody can see? Can you do it in a way that can't possibly be missed? Can you do it in a way that just undeniably proves the point? And Jesus speaks to this tree, and what happens immediately? Nothing. And then he says, have faith. And I think this is so important because it doesn't actually take the most faith to be able to speak a word in a situation. It actually takes the most faith to believe in the middle. And I just feel really led to sit with this for a moment today, because I think a lot of people think faith is all about the decision. Faith is all about the proclamation. Faith is all about the big, bold step. Faith is about the action. Faith is about the doing it. Faith is about the leap. Faith is about the putting it out there. And I think it's so revealing that the moment that Jesus spoke to about where faith was required is after the decision was made, after the word was spoken, after it was put out into the universe. And then the crowd of people around him found themselves in the middle, in a moment of the in-between the initial belief and the manifestation. And that is where it matters most that you have faith. It doesn't matter the most at the beginning. That's not when the most faith is required. And it doesn't matter the most at the end when you're living in the middle of it, in the center of a manifestation, of a dream come true. Faith matters the most. It is required the most when we're in that in-between zone, between the initial step, the initial decision, the initial belief, and the manifestation. And I want to encourage every single one of you who is in process today, every single one of you who is in the middle of creating something big today, every single one of you who is in the middle of believing for something or bringing a vision to life, or maybe even participating in the challenge with my community right now. I want to encourage you, be okay with the in-between. Don't leave the process. Don't leave the journey. Don't leave the adventure. When you find yourself in the in-between, that is the moment that it matters most to have faith. So the people watching see no evidence. They're being told that something has happened. They're being told that something is done. They're being told that a miracle has occurred, but they don't see it. And from their vantage point, it does not look like a miracle has occurred. From their vantage point, it looks like absolutely nothing has happened. But Jesus says, have faith. And time continues to go by. And Jesus' team comes back to that same location one day later. It's almost like they wanted to check on the miracle. They at least had enough belief, enough curiosity, enough openness to want to go back to the location where a miracle was proclaimed, but it looked like nothing happened. And so they go back there, and the tree has completely changed form. The tree has completely shriveled up. The tree is unrecognizable from what it was the day before. And I did not have this in my notes, but I felt this so strongly as I was about to teach tonight. How glad do you think these followers of Jesus were that they gave it a day? That they came back to check 24 hours later? Imagine if they didn't. Imagine if they gave up. Imagine if they forgot about it, right? How glad do you think they were that they came back to check? And by the way, for those of you who are participating in the challenge with me, and if you're hearing me talk about this challenge and you don't know what I'm referring to, I will post the link in the description of this video. You can watch those free teachings and get all the info on that challenge for yourself. But those of you who are participating in the challenge, I want to encourage you. This is why we keep record of our seed. This is why. Because it's not always an A to Z direct link exactly in the timetable that we thought manifestation. But make no mistake about it. What you reap, you always, always, always sow. And as long as the earth remains, there is seed time and harvest. And while your faith may not always produce an immediate, obvious miracle, you want to be able to look back on the intentions you set, the things you put into motion, the seed you put into the ground, and the assignments you gave it, and the things you were believing for in a particular season. You want to be able to look back and see all of the harvest, all of the miracles, all of these beautiful things that in the big picture were all brought to fruition. I also want to encourage somebody today. 24 hours can change a lot. And listen, I believe in patience. I believe in perseverance. I believe in a process. I am not telling people that the standard expectation should be everything I put out there, everything I believe for, I expect to see in one day maximum, right? I will tell you, that is not the way that my faith works on a day-to-day basis. That is not the expectation that I typically have sowing seed myself. But I really did feel called to say to somebody today, 24 hours can change a lot. And I find it striking in this story that they came back, and one day later, it looked completely differently. And I felt led to encourage somebody. So much can happen in 24 hours. So much can change for the better in 24 hours. And perhaps this is a message and a word and an encouragement for somebody watching this today. Expect something to show up for you in the next 24 hours. Expect a return in the next 24 hours. Expect miracles in the next 24 hours. Expect to feel differently in the next 24 hours. Expect it to look differently in the next 24 hours. At least be open to the fact that a lot can change in 24 hours. And again, I'm not saying we lock in that timetable and then it didn't work. If it's not, I'm just saying you never know what can happen in 24 hours. And the reality is, the community around Jesus is a work in progress, learning these lessons about faith. And we really can't be mad that they didn't get it when it wasn't an immediate manifestation here. Because in other places, in other instances, in other stories, it was immediate. And we must also acknowledge, if they locked in their brain, okay, got it. It's always going to be 24 hours. It's always going to be one day. It's always going to be this timetable. That would also have been a mistake, because there were other instances where it took 3 days. It took a week. It took a handful of days. So the point is not that there is a formula or an equation for the timetable. Though I want to encourage you not to give up, and though I want to encourage you to keep records, and though I want to encourage you that 24 hours can change a lot, the point is not the timetable. The point is, it always begins in the invisible realm. And I believe the principle that Jesus wanted his audience to recognize in retrospect was that the moment I spoke that word, the moment that I made that decision, the moment that I set that into motion, something changed in the roots. But see, you weren't looking at the roots, and you couldn't see that, and you didn't consider what might be happening in the invisible realm. You were looking at the tree. You were looking at the externals up here. You were looking at the part that you could see. And I believe the principle that Jesus wanted to communicate in this story is, it always begins in the invisible realm. It always begins in the roots. And just because you haven't seen it yet doesn't mean it's not already finished, that it's not already done, that it's not already handled and taken care of and brought to completion. You just can't see the roots. You just can't see the invisible realm. But faith is the bridge that connects it. You know, in this story, I believe faith demonstrated itself in the people who were willing to go back to that same location one day later. To not forget about it, to not get discouraged, to not give up on it, but to go back one more time. And that is a word for somebody today, whatever it is that you're feeling called to, that maybe you forgot about, you got discouraged with, you set down in the past. What if you're called to go back? What if something is waiting for you there? If you go back to that thing you're feeling called to one more time. I believe faith demonstrated itself in this story, in the people that were willing to go back and check. that we're willing to look again, that we're willing to believe, I haven't seen it yet, but I still have faith. See, when they were willing to do that, they were able to see the miracle. The way that I envision it in my mind, it's almost like you can imagine you're in a video game and your character is standing on the edge of a mountain, of a cliff, of a ledge or something, right? And there's a chasm of just empty space immediately in front of you. And on the other side of that chasm, of that gap, of that space, is the next level. It is a reward, is a destination, it is a place you want to get to, it is a success on the other side. And the way I see it, I'm very visual, this is why I love a good metaphor. The way I see it is, faith is this force that begins to build a bridge for you. And it's not a one and done. It's not like you snap your fingers and the entire bridge just effortlessly appears. I wish it was. I'm not going to pretend that faith always feels fun and sexy and adventurous to me. It does not. I wish sometimes that I could snap my fingers and the entire bridge just appear. But you know how it usually feels? It is that you look down, daring to believe that there must be a way, because I wouldn't see this destination out in front of me if there wasn't a way. And so I dare to believe there must be a way. And now there's one step, just one. Not a full bridge, not half a bridge, not even really much of a bridge, but I can see that one step worth of a bridge has formed in front of me. And by faith, I feel called to take that step. And as I take that step, I realize that the path I'm walking on is gently continuing to grow and to extend and to get larger and to move further and further out in front of me as I walk on it. And as I take some more steps, I notice that more and more of a bridge continues to form. And I keep walking, and I keep taking one step, and then another step, and then another step, and I keep putting one foot in front of the other. And before I know it, I'm at the other side, and I'm looking back at a whole bridge. And now I have the story to tell, that I got here by faith. But isn't it wild that when I took that first step, I didn't even see the bridge. And when I first saw what was there on the other side, I didn't see any bridge at all. I just saw a giant chasm in between. But faith is a bridge that will take us from the invisible to the visible realm. And it is a bridge that requires us to walk on it. It is a bridge that requires our participation. A bridge that requires our conviction. A bridge that requires our commitment. It only shows up if we are willing to believe in it and see it and walk across it one step at a time, even if that's all we have, all we can do, all we can see. But if we walk on it, it is a bridge. And it is always the bridge we need to get to the other side. I wanted to encourage somebody today. Faith is the only bridge you need. You may feel like you're lacking resources that you wish you had. You may feel like you're lacking connections that you wish you had. You may feel like you're lacking ideas or skill or any other characteristic of anybody out there that you perceive has a better time than you, you might feel like you're lacking something that you wish you had. But I wanted to encourage you today. Faith is the only bridge you need. You're not going to get there because of your intelligence alone. You're not going to get there because of your strategy alone. You're not going to get there because of your performance alone. Faith is the required bridge and the only bridge, but the reliable bridge that will move anything and everything from the invisible to the visible. And let's acknowledge, along the way of walking that bridge, faith will direct you. Faith might direct you to a person. Faith might direct you to a teaching. Faith might direct you to a resource, to an idea, to a connection, to a system, to an opportunity. Faith might direct you, but it's never the external thing that has the ability to be the bridge. Faith is the bridge. And your job, your calling, your assignment is to have faith, to stay in faith, to keep the faith long enough for that bridge to emerge, for that bridge to lengthen, for that bridge to carry you to the other side. And so the action step that I want to leave you with today is take the next step. Take the next step. No pun intended. The action steps to come in future videos are not all going to be that literal and parallel to the principle, but today I think it's fitting that the first step that I'm giving you practically here to increase and enlarge your faith is to take the next step. Whatever the thing is that you're wanting to build your faith around right now, we know that it's there in the invisible realm. We know that it's available to you. We know that you get to have it. And we know what tool it's going to take to get it into the room, into this moment, into your life. We know what bridge it's going to take for that thing to not just be an idea, but to be an experience. We know that it's going to take faith. How can you step into a little more faith today? What might it look like for you to take the next step? I really believe every single person watching this or listening to this is going to be guided on your next step with the thing you are believing for. And I want to be very clear here. I'm not trying to imply that there must be a tangible, external, action-based, specific next step. There might be. And if one comes through for you like that, then receive it and own it and act on it. But I want to clarify, when I say there is a next step, and I believe every person connected to this training is going to get clear on their next step, I'm not implying that it has to be a specific action. Sometimes the next step is just to let ourselves see the other side again for the first time in a long time, and to remember this is not where I belong, and there is something out in front of me, and there is a vision I forgot about, and there is something that I am meant to pursue right now. Sometimes the next step is just returning to vision and letting yourself see the other side again. Maybe for the first time ever. Maybe for the first time in a long time. For some people, the next step is just to own it. Maybe to speak it out loud or to share it with me. or to sow a seed around it, or to share it with your coach or your mentor, or to share it on social media or with a friend or with a loving community in your life. For somebody, maybe the next step is just to keep going, just to be consistent with what you know you're called to do and to keep showing up. For some of you, the next step might be to listen, because you don't know what's out there. You don't know what to do. You don't know what comes next. And so for somebody, perhaps your next step is to listen. And for some of you, the next step might just simply feel like having faith and staying in faith, persisting in faith, being the person that when everybody else is looking at a tree going, okay, so what? I don't see anything. Doesn't look like anything changed. When's it coming? When's it happening? Where's the miracle? And you're the person that says, I would never count out the power of faith. I don't know what's happening in the invisible realm, but this story is not over yet. Don't count out the power of God. Don't count out the power of belief. Don't count out the power of faith. For some of you, the right next step might just be to stand firm in that faith, in that belief, in that knowing. And maybe to let go of some doubt, some worry, some stress that you picked up along the way. Maybe to let go of some judgments or expectations or attachments you've had around how it should have looked or when it should have happened, right? And to just stay in that faith, taking the next step. I want to thank each and every one of you who are partners with me in sharing these spiritual teachings and getting this work and this message out to the world. As you all know, I begin every single day praying for you specifically, blessing you into your highest and best, and blessing you into 100-fold return in every possible way. By the way, get ready for a mustard seed teaching in one of these future videos about faith that partners I know you're specifically going to love. But everything that you have set into motion is certainly underway. And we're going to stay in faith as we move forward together. I'm right with you there. I am giving at a higher level than I have ever done before this year in my own journey. And as we transition some things, as we put out more free teaching and content and resources than ever before, I am having my own adventure of faith with you all, and it is an honor and a joy to be on this journey with you. If you want more information about what it looks like to partner with me and this challenge that we speak of that I mentioned earlier in this training, we will post the link here. You can get this set of free teachings from me and find out all about it. If you are feeling called to participate, to support this message, and to receive it for yourself in a very specific way in this moment, we will post the giving link here. All I ask is that you use the notes section to get very clear with yourself on what seed you are putting into the ground. Always be deliberate with that. Always use that opportunity. Always give your seed an assignment. And as we talked about earlier today, when you do so, keep records. Type it out, write it down somewhere, keep records of that so you can look back on it. But also, please share it with me. I love knowing what you are believing for. The most powerful thing in the world is an agreement, and I'm always in agreement with you. So blessing each and every one of you who chooses to participate in this training and in this moment today. Blessing each and every one of you who is here, listening, watching, connected in any way. And of course, blessing my partners. And can we all just thank them in the comments, because they made this message possible for all of us today to reach you right where you are today. So thank you, partners. Thank you all. Get ready for the next 4 videos that are to come, because I've got a lot of principle and a lot that you are going to want to hear and implement and put into practice very soon here to increase your own faith. But I'm going to leave it there today. Thank you for spending this time with me. All things are possible for the one who believes. That means all things, and that means you. You are the one. I love you, I believe in you, and I always will. The best is yet to come.